Welcome to the Ben Buzz. I'm Benny King, and I am really excited for this weekend of college football. There are so many great games. It's going to be so electric. It's going to be so incredible. We've got ranked matchups. We've got rivalries. We've got tons of great things going on this weekend. And as we've said, for weeks, we've had tons of conference play, and it's not ending here. Got tons more incredible games in the SEC, in the Big Ten, in the ACC. It doesn't stop, and college football is here to stay. College football is amazing, and we're going to have several more weeks with it, and here is, on deck, another incredible week, I think. So, to kick off, we got number 10 LSU going on the road at number 17 Vanderbilt. Whoa. This is a huge game for SEC positioning, and both teams already have a loss to an SEC opponent, but both of those losses were to Alabama and to Ole Miss, who are in the top 6 in terms of the AP poll. Not bad losses, obviously. Now, Vanderbilt at 17, I feel like that's a little low for them. I feel like they're a little better than that, and the line also agrees because it's giving Vanderbilt an edge. They're actually favored in this by about a point or so, and since they're at home, so it would be about LSU by 2, something like that, right? So LSU, they really need to figure out the offense. They did play better against South Carolina. South Carolina wasn't terrible, and the way their defense limited Lenora Sellers was very impressive, but now they go on the road against a guy like Diego Pavia, who is also a very talented quarterback. And Pavia was pretty shut down versus Alabama, and I'll tell you what, he hasn't forgotten. He hasn't. And he's going to take that on LSU, I think. I think he's going to play well enough against LSU's defense, and I don't think LSU's offense is going to be able to combat enough because you saw Vanderbilt was able to do decently well against Alabama's offense. And they played that same South Carolina team on the road and destroyed and embarrassed South Carolina in South Carolina's own stadium. LSU did that at home. So I don't understand people trying to demean Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's still a good team. They played Alabama. Look where Alabama is. Alabama is the hottest team in the league. They beat Georgia and Athens. No one's done that in forever. They beat Missouri. Alabama's really good. But anyways, Vanderbilt still did all right in that game, and they dominated a South Carolina team that LSU struggled with and beat by 10 at home. Pavia is really good. So I can't pick LSU here. And I know people are wanting the line here because it is unfortunate that Vanderbilt's favored. So now all of a sudden the upset is kind of LSU, which is kind of crazy. Even though I think Vanderbilt is good and I feel like LSU's ranked too high and Vanderbilt's ranked too low, which is why if you're looking at this from face value, you're like, oh, LSU's number 10 in the country, Vanderbilt's number 17. Well, that's an easy bet. I'll bet LSU, because it's not actually that far away. LSU should be a little further down. Vanderbilt should be a little further up. I take Vanderbilt here very hesitantly. I feel like they can win this one. I got them 31-28. I feel like Vanderbilt and Diego Pavia is going to do more against LSU's defense than Lenora Sellers was able to do, and I don't think LSU is going to have that great of a performance on the road as they've fallen flat before when they went on the road at Ole Miss. Then we had number 12 Georgia Tech going on the road at Duke. We got an interesting ACC showdown. So Georgia Tech has been kind of on the hot seat for a minute. That Wake Forest game wasn't great. They still kind of have a lot to prove, even though they're undefeated, which is crazy. But nearly losing to Wake Forest, having to clean it up in overtime. Now, they did have some solid wins. Georgia Tech's a good team. Here's the thing. They beat Clemson, right? Doesn't look great now, but they also beat Colorado by 7, who's not terrible, but isn't that high up either. And they did pretty good against Virginia Tech and the Hokies, but on the road at Duke, this is a really tough matchup for Georgia Tech. And Haynes King is such a great dual threat, but for some reason, going on the road at Duke and feeling that, having that memory being distant, where we talk about teams that respond well after having that close call. Look what happened to Iowa State after they had that close call, right? And then immediately after that blew out Arizona. And then right after that, what happened? Lost to Cincinnati, lost to Colorado. I feel like that's what's going to happen here. You can't and going on the road right after that. I feel like I take the upset here in Duke. Maybe I shouldn't. I still think Georgia Tech's good, but I feel like Duke is going to win this game. I know, maybe that's crazy. I don't know, but they've been fraudulent before, right? And Clemson isn't good, who they barely beat. So if you think about where I'm kind of coming from, you can see how I kind of got there. And they've been bound to kind of drop a game after they really should have and somehow found a way out of that Wake Forest game. But I think Duke gets it done at home. I think Duke gets it done at home. Going to take them 26-23. Then we had number 14 Oklahoma, and they went on the road at South Carolina this week. So this one is going to be interesting. Lenora Sellers, he's a great quarterback. He didn't have that great of a performance against LSU, and he was one of the more highly touted guys in terms of draft positioning for next year, but now guys like Dante Moore, Fernando Mendoza are kind of cementing themselves in that draft next year. But they are hosting Oklahoma. Now, Oklahoma has had its struggles, right? But they seem to be doing pretty well despite that because they lost Mateer, but luckily they played Kent State, and they had that bye week for 2 of the weeks of that injury. And then they got him back for Texas, but maybe he came back too early because he really didn't look like himself. He was making errant throws. Mateer didn't look great against Texas. That's without being said, because when you have 3 picks, yeah, I bet you didn't look good against Texas. But I think Mateer is still solid, but you worry about that injury. I thought this game was going to be the first one that he was going to be able to play. I didn't think he was going to be able to get into that Red River game. I understand wanting to get into that one. That's just unfortunate. Draw the cards there that he ended up still kind of banged up in that one. But, going on the road at South Carolina, this one's going to be tricky. But you know what? I've had too much faith in South Carolina. I did pick them over Vandy, I believe, way back when. See how that turned out. I picked them last week against LSU, and you see how that turned out. So I really can't anymore. South Carolina's lost my trust, I think is what it is. I think they're going to be pretty competitive in this, but I can't say they win. Oklahoma's got this 27-17 on the road. Then one of the big surprises of last week, number 3, Indiana. Now, Indiana's really good. I mean, they went on the road at Oregon and won. Oregon hadn't lost at home in 18 games, including a game against Ohio State, and they played that same Ohio State team on a neutral site, and they got dominated. So it's like, it is tough to win in Oregon Stadium. No one had done it in a minute, and they did it. Oregon is a good team, and Indiana was able to win somewhat dominantly, actually, because the final score is 30-20. They had a pick 6 towards the end of the second half. Like, they had control of that game. You could even say some interesting calls in the first half kind of hindered Indiana as well. So it's like, Indiana played really well. So I'm like, I'm sorry. There's no way. There's absolutely no way Michigan State stands a chance. I'm sorry. There's absolutely no chance. They just got dominated by UCLA. As much as I love UCLA, I have to believe that Indiana is far better. And UCLA did that on the road. Indiana's going to come back home. I feel like we're going to see a similar thing to how Illinois lost. I'm sorry. Michigan State is not good. I can't say it. And it's not just that they're not good because they've played decent against a lot of teams, but Kurt Cignetti and those guys are going to be so motivated and they're going to really kick it around, and there's no shot. I can't see them contending in this game. I really can't. I'd like to see it, but there's absolutely no way. So I'm going to take Indiana 51-10. Then we had number 5 Ole Miss going on the road at number 9 Georgia, and this is kind of between 2 teams that very nearly lost last week and maybe should have in certain cases. Now, Ole Miss hosted Washington State last week and somehow was in a field goal game, barely beat them. They were tied. Washington State had the lead. Like, it was ugly, and we know Washington State is not good, right? And Georgia had an interesting game against Auburn where the refs really helped them in several situations, and whether you say that Auburn wasn't like the touchdown one was mainly where they called that back. If Auburn gets that, they're up 17-0. And maybe you can debate all you want that it didn't cross the goal line, or it did, but they had several calls all night that hindered Auburn, and the way that they were constantly reviewing for several minutes, killing all of Auburn's momentum, and then giving Kirby Smart a free timeout by giving it to him back. It's really appalling. So honestly, that game was just so horribly officiated. They did play a better team in Auburn than Ole Miss, and I'm kind of rooting against Georgia now because the SEC refs are so in their favor that it's disgusting. And maybe this is just a gut pick. Maybe this is just what I want to happen, but I want Ole Miss to win here. I really do. I think Ole Miss gets it on the road. I think they win 31-26. I think Georgia can do decently good, obviously, but I think it's going to be very similar to what just happened when they played Alabama. I don't think Georgia's what they were beforehand, and this is just one of those things where Ole Miss is going to really respond well. And you saw that last game. They are going to wake up, and they're going to respond against Georgia. They're going to win 31-26, I hope. But, I mean, with these SEC refs, you never really know in that game because it just means more, except when it comes to the officiating. Then we had number 1 Ohio State going on the road at Wisconsin. Now, this one is going to be, so disgusting. Ohio State is the most dominant team in college football. They dominate everyone they play. We know this. And Wisconsin gets dominated by just about everyone, including teams like Iowa. And I'm an Iowa fan. We don't dominate teams that often. It's usually an FCS or like a group of 5 opponent if we do that type of thing. So the fact that we dominated this team in Wisconsin, imagine what Ohio State's going to do. And we did it in Wisconsin's building too. Ohio State is going to go into Wisconsin's building. And if there's any traces of the jump around from last week, it's all gone today. It's all gone. And then they play Oregon, and then they play Washington, and then they play Indiana. When does it stop for when does it stop for the Badgers? It's a dominating performance here, 63-10 for Ohio State. And maybe you say, hey, that's too much. Honestly, you know what's too much? Me giving Wisconsin that much points. You know what? I'm knocking it down to a field goal. Wisconsin gets a field goal. 63-3, Ohio State dominates. If Iowa can go in there and win 37-0 and make Wisconsin feel so lifeless, I wonder what the number 1 team in the country can do. Then we had number 4, Texas A&M on the road at Arkansas, and Arkansas played pretty well against Tennessee last week. Now, Texas A&M does their best when they're at home. We know this. They went on the road and nearly lost to Notre Dame. Notre Dame's a good team, though. But when they're at home, their defense is so stout. They dominated teams like Auburn, Mississippi State. Texas A&M's defense is really legit. It really is. And it wasn't great when they played Notre Dame. And we saw what Notre Dame did against this Arkansas team. So I don't care that Arkansas's home. I really don't. You know how they were close against Tennessee in that game? Because Tennessee's defense is terrible. Everybody puts up points on Tennessee. I'm surprised Tennessee hasn't lost again. They probably will this week, right? But Tennessee's defense is bad. So I know Arkansas was able to put up a lot of points, but everybody been doing that to Tennessee. Tennessee's just lucky enough to be scoring more than the other team at this point. So Texas A&M's going to win on the road. You can't convince me otherwise. You really can't. Texas A&M wins. It's going to be like 41-20 Texas A&M, and the Aggies get the dub on the road. We had our first group of 5 game. Number 22 Memphis going on the road at UAB. Now, this one is huge because Memphis plays South Florida next week. So for both of those ranked AAC teams are going to be looking forward to next week. They really can't slip up, and if they want any chance of getting College game day or any sort of that type of thing, they can't slip up, and they really just need to dominate this week, and I think they will. UAB, I mean, they're fine, but they got dominated by Army. I don't think UAB's that great. I think Memphis is going to win pretty comfortably. I'm going to go 34-23. I would really be surprised if Memphis had too much struggles with this. I could just see UAB scoring a couple things late in garbage time, but Memphis is going to take care of business on the road. Then number 7, Texas Tech at Arizona State. I don't care if this is at Arizona State. I don't care where this is. I really don't. I don't care if Sam Leavitt is playing or not. Texas Tech is not losing. Texas Tech does this to every team they play. It doesn't matter what their quarterback is, because going into this one, Barron Morton, Texas Tech's quarterback, is questionable. So is Sam Leavitt for Arizona State. It's like the backup quarterback, Will Hammond, he still balls out every time he's on the field. He was a big reason why they really pulled away against Utah. I think Sam Leavitt is a lot more valuable to Arizona State's success than whoever's playing quarterback for Texas Tech, and that's no disrespect to them, but it's just like whoever they seem to try it out there. Doesn't really matter because Texas Tech is so dominant. Joey McGuire has done such a great job with Texas Tech, certainly one of the Coach of the Year candidates for sure, but there's no way. I don't care where this game is played. I don't care who's playing at the quarterback position. Texas Tech is going to win, and they're going to win convincingly. That's just what's going to happen. So I'm going to go Texas Tech 38-20. And I feel for Arizona State because losing Sam Leavitt for that huge game last week against Utah is a bummer. And regardless if he plays this week, I feel like Texas Tech is going to lock this up no problem on the road. Then Washington State at Virginia. Virginia's number 18. They had the huge victory against Florida State at home. And then they went on the road and beat Louisville. Both overtime games, by the way. And they haven't slipped up. They've been consistent. Virginia's really good, right? And I know they're barely escaping these games, but I don't care. Virginia's still pretty good, and I think they're going to beat Washington State at home. I know Washington State had that huge boost last week, but Virginia's going to be watching that film all week. Virginia's going to win this one fairly decently, although I could see it getting close. I think it's going to be 31-17. Virginia gets it done at home. Then number 8, Oregon on the road at Rutgers, and this is another murder. Sorry, Rutgers, but you're facing an Oregon team. This Oregon team has everything to prove, and they're going to dominate you. You saw what happened last week when they faced Indiana. They're not going to forget that. They're going to take it all out on you. I really feel for Rutgers here. They're going to get taken out on by Oregon quite a bit. I'm going to take Oregon 41-23. Then we had number 21 Texas going on the road in Kentucky, and this one is an interesting one. Texas got back into the rankings last week. Kentucky hasn't been great. Everybody's been kind of blowing out Kentucky. They've kind of been the laughingstock in terms of the SEC, especially with teams like Vanderbilt and Mississippi State that are usually kind of bottom feeders, kind of being respectable this year. Now, that's not really the case for a team like Kentucky. Now they're kind of down there. They're mainly there for basketball. They're rarely that great in football since guys like Will Levis were doing pretty good with them. But regardless, Texas gets it on the road at home. On the road at home? They're going to win on the road at Kentucky. I'm going to take Texas here. I don't think they're going to be that spectacular. I think they're going to fall flat a little bit, but they're not playing someone who's really going to take advantage of it. I'm sorry, Kentucky, you're just not. Texas is going to win this one 34-21. Now we have another Group of 5 team in the American Zone, number 19, South Florida. So South Florida continues to rise in the rankings, and following that huge win at North Texas at the Mean Green in a dominant fashion, they put up a 60-burger on the road there, and now they host Florida Atlantic. Florida Atlantic, I mean, this is the issue, though. Same thing with Memphis. Are they going to be looking forward to that game? I still think they're going to beat Florida Atlantic pretty convincingly, but I could see it getting close, especially what happened last week. They might fall flat a little bit in between these huge games, but I would be so shocked if they lose. I just don't see it. I got South Florida 33-13. We had number 11 Tennessee going on the road at number 6 Alabama. Now, this one is another really interesting matchup, and this is probably where College Game Day should be debatably. You could make your picks on that, but Tennessee, Alabama, this is huge. And Tennessee hasn't won at Alabama in a while. If you remember back with Hendon Hooker when Tennessee beat Alabama, I believe that was at Rocky Top. So I would be surprised if Tennessee went in and beat the hottest team in the league in Alabama right now. Alabama, in their 3-week stretch, this is one of the most impressive 3-week stretches in a minute. Because not only do you beat Georgia at Georgia, no one did that before COVID, they did it. And then after that, you face Vanderbilt at home, and Vanderbilt was pretty ferocious. Like, Pavia was doing kneel-downs before the game. He was practicing that formation, which is crazy to do, by the way. Next-level trolling, but it didn't pay off. Alabama wins anyway. Then they go on the road and take care of Missouri, who's also highly ranked. It's like, Alabama's good. Alabama's really good. And I don't know what happened week 1, and it definitely looks worse with Florida State. But you know what? They're not going to have trouble here, I don't think. As much as I like Tennessee, their defense is not great. They've got a lot of holes there that they really need to find a way to plug. And against a team like Alabama, they're definitely going to exploit them. So it's going to be nothing doing in that realm. Now, Tennessee's offense, I think, can play well. I mean, we saw what they did to Georgia. We saw what they did to Arkansas, Mississippi State. They put up a lot of points on everybody. The issue is that the other team is also able to put up a lot of points as well. Other than that first half or so against Georgia, they haven't really had great complementary defense. So I can't say with confidence that they're going to shut down Alabama and put up enough points to cover that deficit. I really don't think so. Now, Tennessee's not bad. Are they number 11 in the country? Well, I mean, they haven't lost to anyone but Georgia. It's just one of those things where I don't see it. Alabama's going to win, and they're at home. They win at home. You know, Tuscaloosa is a very tough place to play. Tennessee doesn't win there often. They win a lot better in Rocky Top. But Alabama's going to win this one. It's going to be like 30-20. Alabama's going to take care of business once again for the 4th straight week. And now with number 20 USC at number 13 Notre Dame. Now, this is crazy between two sort of blue bloods in college football. Maybe not necessarily, but definitely historic programs and historic, I don't know if you say rivalry, but just a lot of players from each college that, you know, people can remember. Just, you know, I'm kind of going on a tangent, but you know what I mean. Both programs are pretty respected and have pretty good histories. That's what I'm trying to say. So USC is really interesting. Now, they had that huge victory with Jaden Mayava at home against ranked Michigan, who was number 15 at the time, I believe. And then you have Notre Dame, whose most impressive thing is that they've lost twice close to two really good teams. Now, the teams that they did lose to, like, they did lose to those teams, but like the teams that they lost to are really good. So they're really respectable losses. I get that. Now, number 13 feels too high. I wouldn't even have them ahead of USC right now. USC has a good win. Notre Dame does not. And I don't know. I mean, Notre Dame's pretty good. I feel like they win this game. It's just, I don't know. I feel like this really is their only chance at a quality win, so they really can't squander it because they're going to win out the rest of their schedule, and if they don't, they would be a heavy favorite in a game that they would lose. This is the only game where it's like, this is going to be huge for resume building. You'd be like, hey, we beat number 20 USC at home. Now, if they're 10-2 and that's all they have to say, like, honestly, they probably shouldn't make it. They'll probably get in just on namesake alone and just the fact that they made it last year, but which is, maybe you say is messed up. But I think they're rated too high. But you know what? I think they take care of business against USC as good as I think USC is. We saw what happened when USC played Illinois. So I just can't see that. And USC plays best when they're at home. They got to travel all the way up to South Bend. I think Notre Dame ends up winning this with guys like C.J. Carr. Jeremiah Smith is going to be huge for this game because he runs so effectively. Now, Mekhi Lemon is a great receiver for USC, but I feel like Notre Dame's defense is going to be good enough. I don't know. It's really splitting hairs here. I think this is going to be a great game, by the way. It's going to be a huge game. Now, I do take Notre Dame cautiously. Obviously, I say that too much, by the way. But Notre Dame's going to win this one. I'm hoping it's kind of a shootout. I'm going to take Notre Dame 37-34. I think it's going to be a very entertaining nightcap game in South Bend. Now we got a tiger-on-tiger matchup. Got Missouri Tigers going on the road at Auburn Tigers. Now, this one is huge. Both teams coming off of a loss, so both teams desperately don't want to lose back-to-back, obviously. Why would you want to lose back-to-back? But Auburn kind of got cheated-ish. They probably didn't get the touchdown on when they said they didn't cross the goal line. I get that one. But the way that the refs were squandering their momentum and then ended up giving Georgia a free timeout definitely really flipped the game and just the momentum of it all. So Auburn is definitely not happy about that. And now, the amount of SEC losses they have now is stacking up with a loss to Oklahoma as well and Texas A&M. So Auburn is good, I think. Missouri really needs to respond well. And Missouri, with guys like Prebula, they play well, but for some reason, I think Auburn is going to be at home, and I think they're going to be so upset about what just happened, and I think you're going to win. It's going to be a relatively low-scoring game. I got Auburn 24-21. Let me add another one that I think could possibly be a pretty big blowout. I got number 24 Cincinnati on the road at Oklahoma State. Now, Oklahoma State just fired Mike Gundy a few weeks ago, who has been there for decades at this point. Gundy's been there forever. If you remember, he's a man, and he's not 40 anymore. He's actually in his 60s, I believe. He's pretty old now, but he was a man at one point. And Oklahoma State is not what they used to be, obviously. And I think Cincinnati, once again, is not going to have trouble. Cincinnati's great. Cincinnati's number 24 in the country. They had a good win against Iowa State. Then they handled UCF, and they're not going to have problems against Oklahoma State. I would be really surprised if they did. Cincinnati's going to win very, very comfortably. I got them 36-24. I'm probably over-exaggerating Oklahoma State's score there, but I think it's possible they're at home and they've played better under their interim coach. But it's very possible that this is just an insane blowout with a Cincinnati Bearcats team that is looking very promising. Now we have the Holy War. Number 23 Utah on the road at number 15 BYU. Now this is a huge matchup in the state of Utah. It's a huge rivalry, and it's really cool that they're both Big 12 teams now, that we can really have that type of in-state, in-conference rivalry, and it's really interesting. You got the Utes, and you got, the Brigham Young. What do they call themselves? The Cougars? Whatever it is. Brigham Young is been pretty good this year. They're number 15 in the country. They're undefeated. They've had close calls, but they've responded well from them, and Utah's only loss is Texas Tech, which we know what Texas Tech is. Texas Tech is actually incredible. We know everything about Texas Tech, so Utah actually contended for a while in that game, so that's pretty respectable. And Utah just dominated Arizona State. Arizona State was without their quarterback, so you could attribute it to that maybe. And BYU is pretty solid as well. I don't know, because this one's interesting. I feel like Utah's more battle-tested. I feel like BYU and the teams that they've been close with aren't as impressive. I still think BYU is good. Don't get me wrong. It's just the way Utah played against Arizona State. And I know Sam Leavitt wasn't there, but just the way they've played since that Texas Tech game. And even in that game, even though they got dominated at the line of scrimmage, even though they played a lot worse than we were hoping they would, it's like, now that we know what Texas Tech is, you really can't be too upset about that, because Texas Tech turns out they're pretty much a top 5 team. So Texas Tech's really good. But I think Utah's going to win on the road here. I think they're going to find a way to win. It's going to be very chippy, and I think it could be pretty defensive. I'm taking Utah 20-17. I think they get it done on the road at BYU. All right, now I'm going to get into some of my buzzsaw picks. So we had a good week a couple weeks ago where we went 27-3. That was huge. And last week was a down week. If you watched it, it was like hit or miss. Going to get back on track, and similarly to how I did 27-3, that was huge. And it was my best week since the very first week. So let's see if we can nail some of these picks. So we got Washington going on the road at Michigan. Now, Michigan, we know they do great at home, and Washington on the road, it's going to be difficult. I feel like Washington wins this one on the road. UConn at Boston College, I'm going UConn there. They're pretty good. Arizona at Houston. Give me Houston there. Baylor on the road at TCU. I think TCU gets it done at home, and then Army at Tulane. I feel like the Green Wave is going to be able to handle that one. Central Michigan on the road at Bowling Green. Honestly, Bowling Green was impressive last week. Give me Bowling Green. Eastern Michigan on the road at Miami, Ohio. I'll go Miami. And then West Virginia at UCF. This one, both aren't good, but UCF is better, I think. Then Kent State at Toledo. Once again, Holy Toledo. So Holy Toledo's winning that one. Buffalo on the road at UMass. Once again, you know it. Every week, Buffalo. We're taking Buffalo there. Then we got Purdue on the road at Northwestern. Now, Northwestern just beat Penn State, albeit when they were at their worst, but I'll give the edge to Northwestern there. Purdue's not good. Then we got Troy on the road at UL Monroe. Yeah, Troy gets it done on the road, sure. Then we got SMU at Clemson. Man, we thought this was going to be a ranked matchup at the start of the year, and it is not. SMU's going to win on the road. Wyoming on the road at Air Force. So it's, if a guy was driving a plane, right, would he be able to beat a guy on a horse? I think so. So Air Force wins. Then we got UNLV going on the road at Boise State. Once again, would a horse beat a rebel? I think the horse wins. Give me Boise State. Then we got Coastal Carolina at App State. I'll take App State there. Then Old Dominion on the road at James Madison. Old Dominion's been pretty good. I'm gonna take Old Dominion over James Madison for some reason. Then we got Texas State on the road at Marshall. I don't know. I'm gonna go Texas State there. Then we got Temple on the road at Charlotte. The Charlotte Miners. I think they call them like the 49ers or something. No. I'm taking Temple. I backed out. UTSA on the road at North Texas. I think the Mean Green get back on track. Akron on the road at Ball State. I saw something recently that we're at the peak of migration season, and given that the Ball State are the Cardinals, they're going to migrate all over Akron. It's not going to be close. Ball State, easy pick. We got Northern Illinois on the road at Ohio. Yeah, I'm going to take the Northern Illinois. I feel like either team could really win that one as a toss-up. Then Mississippi State on the road at Florida. Crazy, neither of these teams are ranked at this point in the year. We thought at least one of them would be, but alas, neither. I'm going to take the Gators, actually. I think they win at home. Lagway's been hit or miss, but I'm taking Florida here. Southern Miss on the road at Louisiana. Listen, the Golden Eagles are pretty good. We talked a lot about how they got a lot of stuff from Marshall. Southern Miss is good. And once again, in the peak of migration season, so the Eagles are going to win. This is a dumb excuse for an answer to that. Then we got Maryland on the road at UCLA. I'm gonna take UCLA. They're probably the best 4-loss team in college football. Then Hawaii at Colorado State. Well, Rainbow Warriors. We're taking the Rainbow Warriors. Now we got an in-state game against Georgia State and Georgia Southern. Georgia State's mascot looks like the mascot of my current college that I go to. That's why Georgia State is going to win. Then we got Pittsburgh on the road at Syracuse. Pittsburgh just beat Florida State. I'm taking Pittsburgh. Then we got Nevada on the road at New Mexico. Ooh, I'm going to take New Mexico there. I think they beat them. And then Lafayette at Oregon State. Man, does Oregon State get a win? Or do they become the best 8-loss team in college football? Against Lafayette, though, there's not much chance that they lose this, right? Yeah, give me the Beavers. Then Florida State at Stanford. Wow, neither of these teams are ranked. Yeah, Florida State's probably the better team, so I'm going to have to go. You know what? Give me Stanford. Give me Stanford to break all their hearts. Stanford. Oh, my gosh. That's probably the dumbest pick I ever made, but you know what? I don't care. Stanford, sure. Andrew Luck. It doesn't even make any sense. But that's going to be the buzzsaw for this week. We'll see how a lot of these pan out. Made some silly picks, as evident in that pick right there. So we'll see how many of these pan out. But it's based on pure raw saw instinct. So, you got to go with your gut. If if it pops up and it's like, oh, I guess I'm picking Stanford now. I don't know. I didn't realize I was going to do that. But Stanford's going to beat Florida State. Sure. So that's going to be the buzzsaw for this week. So we'll see how it ends up performing on Saturday. And now it's once again that time to get into my Ben Buzz Top 25. So teams that nearly made this list were Texas, Louisville, and UNLV. Now, UNLV is one of the undefeated teams from the group of 5 that I didn't put in here, along with Navy. I'm just not there yet. And the Mountain West isn't competitive this year. It's not like they don't have a team like Boise State that's really that crazy, and they don't have a player like Ashton Genty this year. As much as you want to say UNLV is pretty solid, which I think they are, but they don't make this list for me, not quite yet. And then Texas is pretty close, but those 2 early losses and then beat on a withered Oklahoma team, I almost put Texas, and honestly with some of those teams in the bottom 5, we'll see what ends up happening with that. If BYU ends up losing, who knows what ends up happening with that. Texas might end up slipping in there, and then Louisville is an interesting one because they play Miami here soon. And as I'm recording this, they're about to get going, so Louisville, we'll have to see if they can shock the world. And teams that fell out, we had Michigan. I had them at 14, about where the AP poll had them. I was too high on Michigan. That's my bad. And then Arizona State dropped out. Sam Leavitt got injured, and he didn't play last game. That was the most unfortunate part of that game. So, honestly, that ranking in mine was when Sam Leavitt plays for Arizona State, he's really good. So very unfortunate for them. And then Florida State also dropped out. Now time to get into my top 25 here. So I had Nebraska at number 25, and Nebraska is a really interesting one. Now they only have the 1 loss against Michigan, and while it wasn't that great of a performance, I still think Nebraska is solid. They are going to have to clean some things up, and when they play a team like Minnesota, we'll have to see if they're able to win that one. We'll have to see, but they only have the 1 loss against Michigan for now, and they have a fairly decent resume with a win like Cincinnati, so they're at 25. Then we had Utah at 24. Now they had a great win against Arizona State, and I know Sam Leavitt wins injured, but they dominated it, and their only loss is to Texas Tech, and Texas Tech is absolutely elite, so you can't really blame them for that, so they're at 24. Then we have BYU at 23. Interesting that we have that Holy War game, that huge rivalry game this week, and those teams are in close proximity with BYU right next to Utah. I've been slowly coming around on BYU. I'm just not quite there yet. I'm not quite putting them too high yet. If they beat Utah, yes, obviously I'm going to start putting them in top 15 conversations, obviously, but I'm just not quite there yet. And the teams that they're beating aren't impressive, so I'm just not quite there yet. But BYU's at 23. Then I put Cincinnati at 22. Honestly, Cincinnati's really good. Huge win against Iowa State, and I know a lot of people are maybe going to be upset about this because Nebraska's behind them, even though they have that head-to-head against Cincinnati, but Cincinnati really does have a better resume, I think you can say. It's just Cincinnati's been more impressive, and honestly, I'm more confident in Cincinnati going forward. I'm still slow to come around on Nebraska. I'm not quite there yet. So Cincinnati's at 22, and then Washington's at 21. Really surprised they're not ranked at all. Disgusting. They're in the place that basically Texas was in the AP ranking this past week. Washington's really good. They dominated Rutgers this past week. Their quarterback, Williams, is spectacular. He's been impressive. And the one game that they didn't play well in was against Ohio State, but it's like that's incredibly reasonable because it's Ohio State. Washington's still really good. I'm sick of the AP hating on them and people pretending like they're not good because they are good. They are good. Washington's at 21, and they're certainly in the top 25. I don't understand why we're pretending like they're not a top 25 team. They're at 21. Then I had Notre Dame at 20. Notre Dame's still a really difficult one to rank because of the issues that they had earlier in the year with those 2 losses. So I was slow to put them back in, and I ended up sliding them up to 21. I ended up moving them up to 20. I think they deserve that. And when they play USC this next weekend, if they end up winning that one, I do think I will start to bump them a lot higher. But I can't put them at a spot like 13 like the AP poll has done. I don't know how you rationalize that. So Notre Dame's at 20. We'll see what happens when they play USC, who's at 19. They just had a huge win against Michigan at home. Dominated them. Mekhi Lemon's a stud. And guys like Jaden Mayava, they're really coming together. Lincoln Riley, this is becoming kind of the team that he envisioned when he moved over to USC. Not quite at the level that he wanted, though. Probably the best chance was when they made it to the Pac-12 championship and ended up being upset by Utah and ended up missing the playoffs outright. So USC's having a tough go at it. They did get that huge win against Michigan. That loss against Illinois does still linger, and with Illinois losing to Ohio State does make it look worse, but let's not act like that's not reasonable. Everyone's going to lose. Just about everybody on any Saturday will lose to Ohio State. It's just how it works this year. And most years, because Ohio State is elite. So you can't really excuse them for that. So I get it. So, yeah. Anyways, USC's still pretty good. Then we got Virginia at 18. Virginia is really surprising, honestly. Those 2 overtime games are huge. I still really like Virginia going forward. And maybe if you can demean those wins, you can. You're like, oh, they barely won in overtime. Oh, they're not as dominant. But they're winning those games. They're stacking up a resume, and we'll see if that Louisville win ends up aging better as the weeks go on. Virginia's at 18. Then I put Memphis at 17. This is huge for the AAC. They've been pretty dominant. They beat Arkansas. That was a solid win. Memphis is good, and I feel like they're still kind of undervalued in the AP poll. We'll see if they end up getting more respect if they end up blowing out UAB this weekend. Then we had Georgia Tech at 16, and I've been slow to come back around to Georgia Tech. I had them up pretty high, and then all of a sudden, the Clemson win doesn't look too good. And they're starting to have, and then they barely won against Wake Forest in overtime. Maybe you say they were controversial calls, but they are still undefeated, so I'm starting to move them back up. I just was slow to come back around on Georgia Tech after they really, really should have lost to Wake Forest, but they're up at 16 for me. Then I went with USF at 15. I feel like they deserve that. They've been dominating teams. They just dominated North Texas. Their only loss is Miami, which, once again, looks like a really good loss. USF's pretty good, and they've been dominant in the teams that they've played, and they also have that road win against Florida that aged better when they beat Texas. USF's pretty good. They're at 15. Then I had LSU at 14. Honestly, LSU's not at number 10 for me, like the AP poll is done. I just can't get behind that they're number 10 right now. Their offense is really struggling. They're starting to run the ball not great, a little better, but their defense is really winning them games, and I can't trust that going forward. They're not up there on some of the levels of the other teams. Then I had Tennessee, and maybe this is one of the more controversial ones because of Tennessee's maybe defensive lacking. So in a head-to-head game, maybe I end up picking LSU over them. But honestly, Tennessee has a better win in Mississippi State, and LSU, I'm not going to act like that Clemson win is a good win. I'm sorry, I can't do it anymore. Clemson's actually bad, but you could say it's a domino effect of them beating them, and then Clemson ends up losing several after. But I just can't buy it as much. Then I had Oklahoma at 12, and I could have dropped Oklahoma farther, but when they're at full strength, and when we're talking about resumes, now I know some people might end up propping Texas a lot higher and end up saying, they should be above. No, I disagree. Oklahoma still has a fairly decent resume with teams like Auburn and Michigan that isn't aging well, as those teams have now dropped out. But Oklahoma is still solid when they're at full strength, when John Mateer is healthy, and when he's not throwing 3 interceptions in a very important game. I think he really rushed his recovery there. Unfortunate for them, but I think they're going to get back on the horse this week against South Carolina. Then I had Vanderbilt at 11. Honestly, Vanderbilt is getting so underrated. Yeah, they're always getting underrated. That's just kind of what they do to Vanderbilt. But Vanderbilt's really solid, and Pavia is really good. The way they blew out South Carolina in South Carolina Stadium is so impressive, and Vanderbilt is really solid. And I think they're going to have a really good chance against LSU this week, so they're at 11. Then this one might be controversial. I kept Missouri at 10. I couldn't drop them too far. Alabama's been so impressive, and the way they fought back and the way that they had a chance towards the end and only lost by a field goal is still pretty impressive because the teams they lost to was so great in Alabama. I'm not going to act like Missouri should really drop too far because, let's be honest, Alabama's really good. I'm not going to pretend like all of a sudden, I got to drop them or I'm forced to drop them. No. If they played really well against a team that is so impressive, and you see I moved Alabama up because they deserve it. So Missouri's still really good there at 10. Then Georgia's at 9. Georgia's a really difficult one to rank because they probably should have several losses up to this point. They probably should have lost to Tennessee. They probably should have lost to Auburn if it weren't for some defensive lackings on Tennessee and some officiating problems in the Auburn game. And then they got beaten by Alabama at home. So Georgia's really difficult to rank. I still think they deserve to be up there. That Tennessee's win is still pretty impressive, so they're up there. Then Oregon, I have a tough time putting Oregon any lower, especially with how fraudulent Georgia has been. I just can't do it. And Oregon is still pretty impressive, and that win against Penn State, it's kind of unfortunate because it's kind of similar to the Clemson win that LSU has, because it's like, if that's your best win, but you talk about domino effects and you're like, you're the reason that they lost and then they lost later. So that's pretty difficult to do. So Oregon is still solid, I would say, and we'll see if they end up making too deep of a push. We're going to have to really see what ends up happening with Oregon, but they're at 8. Then Ole Miss is at 7. Honestly, I could have dropped Ole Miss farther. I really did, but on a resume basis, I couldn't let myself do it because look where LSU is. You really can't rationalize that, but they barely beat Washington State at home. Previously, they had barely beaten Kentucky and then barely beat Arkansas in back-to-back weeks, so they are really struggling in some areas, but when they lock in, when they actually try, and when they actually put their mind to it, they actually play really well, like when they absolutely dominated Tulane or when they really controlled the game against LSU. So Ole Miss is good when they want to be, and on a resume basis, they're still pretty solid. I still like Ole Miss. Then Alabama at 6. Now, Alabama is by far the hottest team in college football. They've played 3 straight ranked games, and they're 3-0, and they have a ranked game this week. I would be surprised if they lost it. I feel like Alabama's just really good, and we'll have to see what happens, but they've come such a long way since that Florida State loss, I think. And we were really thinking we were starting to finally see kind of the ripple effects of no Saban. Now, we saw it last year with certain losses, but it's like, well, they still got to 9 wins. They were still respectable. They still beat Georgia, where we felt like, oh, this is the year that we're really seeing the cracks. This is the year that the program falls. But no, Alabama is actually just really good. And I should have known because, Kalen DeBoer was fantastic at Washington. I was just waiting. I was like, it's got to click at some point. And then especially when they brought in Ryan Grubb. When he has success, he usually has his right-hand man, Ryan Grubb, with him. So I'm like, if it's not going to happen this year, then, and it has. Well, Alabama's really good. Alabama has a great future, and they're definitely really, really great right now. And they would probably be in contention for the number 1 spot had they not had that loss to Florida State early on, which doesn't look good now. But Alabama's really good, and they're definitely one of the hottest teams in college football currently. Then once again, I feel like my top 5 continues to shift week to week, honestly. This top 5 could look completely different. We'll have to see how it ends up looking, but Texas Tech deserves being in the top 5, I would say. They've been so dominant against everyone that they played, and against a team like Utah that's starting to become more respectable, and then against Kansas, that's not terrible. They did pretty good against Missouri, who's at 10. So Texas Tech's pretty good, and I think people are just discrediting them and saying they're not great purely because they're in the Big 12. They're elite, and I think they're top 5 right now. And then the Hoosiers. I wanted to put the Hoosiers higher, but on a resume basis, I struggled to do it, and especially at Oregon win, you wonder how much stock you can really put in that when Penn State has also really suffered since losing to Oregon. I still think Oregon's good, but I'm not as high on Indiana as the committee was. I was higher on them for a while, but I just have a tough time putting them ahead of anybody that's ahead of them on here. And especially when it comes to resume, because you look at the resume that Texas A&M has built up. They beat Auburn handedly, Mississippi State handedly, and then what they did Notre Dame, and you look, Notre Dame is rising on this list. And I know you would say in a single game, in a vacuum, the Oregon win is the most impressive between the two teams, but when you look at the both as a whole, I feel like you have to give Texas A&M the edge. So that's what I kind of went with. It's Texas A&M at 3. Texas A&M has been really dominant, especially at home. Their defense plays great. Texas A&M is really solid. And they just played pretty good against Florida. They kind of shut down those upset rumors that resulted in that game. They played really well. Then I had Ohio State at number 2. Now, I think Ohio State is probably the best team in college football, but I can't put them up there yet. On a resume basis, I can't quite do it. Now, they do have a decent resume that they're kind of building up. They beat Illinois in a team that probably shouldn't be ranked, and then a team in Texas that is ranked now but probably shouldn't be. It's just tough because it's like those are their best wins, right? And outside of that, they also beat Washington. So you know what? They're building up quite a resume. And it's funny because like I have Washington in here and I don't have Texas or, Illinois. So that's funny. That's the one that I actually picked, the one that the AP refuses to acknowledge that they're pretty good. But you just look at the whole body of work that Miami has. Now, going forward, Miami's got some tough games, and they don't play another ranked team, I believe, but Louisville on Friday night is going to be a difficult one for them. I'm not sure how that game's going to go. But when you look at their overall resume with Miami, not only beating South Florida, which you see where Florida is, South Florida at 15. Florida was fairly decent. They've only lost to good teams. They beat them pretty handedly, especially in the fourth quarter. Like, their resume is really starting to build up. And then you look at Notre Dame, just like Texas A&M has, who's at number 20, who was in the national championship last year. It's like Miami's building up a resume. And then Florida State, who is now fallen out. So their resume is aging a little bad, but it's just like, yeah, Ohio State has the win over Texas. Well, I don't think is as impressive now. And Illinois, who probably shouldn't have been ranked when they played, and the only one that I really truly think oh man, that is really impressive, is the Washington one. And I know Texas wasn't number 1 when they beat them, but they really shouldn't have been number 1, as impressive as that was. So when you look at that like that, Miami just has the complete body of work and more games to, I think, solidify their claim. So I think this really could alter next week. And Indiana is an interesting one. I wanted to put them higher, and then teams like Nebraska, I struggled to think like, oh, do you put them in now? I hadn't put them in all year, and then a lot of people were saying, oh, Nebraska should go against Cincinnati because of head-to-head. I'm like, well, it's just really tough to put up a top 25, and especially when you're relying on really resume-based. It's not like a CFP ranking where they kind of value head-to-head more. It's just a tough thing to do, to put together a top 25 like this. And it's so weird because college football is so wild and so radical, so erratic, so sporadic. I don't know what I'm saying now, but it's like it's such a crazy sport, and this top 25 is going to be so different because there's so much parity in college football and there's so many great teams, and I'm really, really excited how this ends up shaking up, and I'm really excited to flip this on its head once again next week. This weekend is certainly setting up to be another incredibly eventful weekend of college football. Now, college football has been so great, and it was really unfortunate to be without it for so many months, and I feel like a broken record every week, but I feel so grateful to have college football and such a great sport, and I really do appreciate a lot of you for tuning in. We actually got a decent amount of views on my predictions video last week, which I was kind of surprised about because if you saw, my voice was kind of out. Definitely a lot better this week in terms of my voice, so I appreciate you all for getting this far in the video. Just really appreciate everyone that clicks on it. Really do appreciate it because obviously my channel is pretty small, but I appreciate every subscriber, every like that I get. I really do, and if you comment, I'll definitely respond to you. So that's the type of thing that I do around here. So I really appreciate everyone that tunes in, and if you love college football, if you love college ball, and you want to chop it up in the comments, I'll definitely comment with anybody, but don't usually get too many comments, but that's fine. I appreciate anyone that clicks on the video. Just that does great things for the channel. So I really do appreciate everyone that does that. And just, I mean, if you got to this point in the video, then obviously, that's huge. So I really appreciate all of you and really do appreciate having this type of platform to talk about college ball. So I really appreciate all of you that click on this video and really just appreciate everyone that watches and just everyone that really appreciates college football. And it's such a great time of year. It really is. And like I said, I sound like a broken record, but college football is so incredible. And I'm really happy that we're going to have another great weekend and several weekends for weeks to come. This is the Ben Buzz. I'm Benny King, and thanks for tuning in.